Thanks, Veronica. We are going to get to the conversation, promise. So we have about 15 or 20 minutes here to wrap up. But again, my name is Joe Bishop. I'm with the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials. Just rolls right off your tongue, NALEO. We represent the nation's 6,000 plus Latino policymakers, from school board members to members of Congress. We are indeed honored to be in good company with the Campaign for High School Equity and our 10 partner organizations. And as a collective, we all have unique insight and contributions to add to the conversation. And I had prepared questions that we're going to bring up, and everybody hit on all the talking points. So we'll get creative here. But after I ask that question to a few of the panelists here, I'd like to bring up my colleague, Jacqueline Ayers from the National Urban League, to facilitate the general Q&A. We've talked a lot today about, broadly speaking, accountability and outputs, what type of outcomes we want and how are we going to measure those outcomes. I've heard from each of you tidbits on the investment piece. What type of investments do we have to make to support a college and career agenda for communities of color and for students of color? I'm actually, hopefully that's not my phone. Okay. I'm going to ask Delia Pompa from NCLR to maybe expand on, and Delia, I heard in your comments a little bit on that, but if Delia could answer that question, and actually Doua, and then Jacqueline, my colleague, will come up and do the general Q&A.
Sure. The investments that we need to make in our children are really the investments we're making for everyone with a twist, with some customization. We as a group have been working for over 2 years now on the adoption of core common standards for students. And people ask us why we're doing that. Since those are high standards, don't we want to focus on other things like better health services, like making sure kids have a meal? And we, as Diane pointed out, those things are very important to us. But when you have common high standards for all students, then we believe lots of things fall in place behind that. Because if you hold the same high standard for all students, then you've got to invest in better teachers who are prepared to work with these kids. You've got to invest in the latest technology to make sure all kids have access to learning as we know it today, and the newest learning. You've got to invest in classrooms that are equipped with the materials that are necessary. You've got to invest in parents understanding what to expect for their children and how to demand that for their children and how to be part of their children's education. So I think all these investments are important, beginning with holding kids to very high standards.
Thanks, Joe. You know, a lot of people say, and the connection to our work around disaggregated data is, you know, why is it important to disaggregate your data? And we often say to folks, it's important to invest in that system to know what's going on with all students, right? So if you don't know what's going on with the largest concentration of Hmong students in the Twin Cities, about a population of 40,000 in 2 small cities, how can you know what's going on with students with special needs? How can you know what's going on with students who are diverse? I mean, the way that we look at the population and its growth, if you just look at the recent census data, is Asian Americans, Pacific Islander students are not all in San Francisco, New York. They're in Georgia. They're in Texas. They're in, you know, my parents moved to Arkansas, right? And part of the dilemma is those school districts don't know what's going on with those students. So for us, we feel like an investment in understanding where students are at, what they look like, what their, you know, SES status is, and all those pieces are going to be able to tell the entire country about being able to even find more nuance and more specific information about students that we never see, students with disabilities, students who have major language challenges, students who might come from single parent homes, and what that might require in this economic climate. So, you know, investing for us in a strong data system that really tells that story is going to better the overall academic programs in this country.
Great. So that's our starting point right there with comments from Delia and Doua. Please join me in welcoming Jacqueline Ayers. Take it away.